like to thank the organizers, EEL Events from London, and I'm so happy that we have been collaborating since 2012 on the C Private Equity and M&A Forum. And it is nice to see everybody in this digital edition. The very last time I've been in this event was as chairwoman, exactly almost a year from now in Belgrade. And that has been a really wonderful event. And, you know, digital is a unique opportunity and experience. So I am also happy that the organizers introduced this extremely important topic, which is the ESG considerations in private equity and M&A deal-making process. And I am positive that everybody in the audience is very well aware how ESG and sustainability have become mainstream, and that is a trend that has only been reinforced by COVID-19. I would like to introduce a very distinguished speakers that I have here with me on this panel. Here with me is Maya Hernkes. She leads the ESG work of European Bank for Reconstruction and Development with financial institutions and private equity. She has more than 15 years of experience in sustainability financing, and at EBRD she promotes the integration of environmental and social risk and opportunities, including climate change, in investment decisions and investment management. She supervises the environmental and social risk management and safeguard frameworks for a portfolio of over 3.3 billion euros in approvals per year. In addition, Maya runs the EBRD's ESG training program for financial institutions and private equity funds. Then another lady that I'm very keen to have on the panel is Renata Burkic. She is a founding partner of Feels Good Capital Partner. In addition, she has been a serial entrepreneur and impact investor, strongly devoted to fostering social impact orientation in business. So she has been running herself as well as mentoring others. As a founding partner of Feels Good Social Impact Investment Fund for Croatia and Slovenia, she has been playing a pivotal role in bringing the European Investment Fund as a principal investor to the fund. In addition, she is a World Business Angel High Commissioner to Croatia. She heads the World Business Angel Investment Forum Impact Committee, and she runs really wonderful ideas of delivering financial and impact return. And in addition, she is a mother of three. Milorad Anđelić is a partner at Abris Capital, which he joined in 2008. He has more than 15 years of private equity experience. Milorad covers multiple Central Europe geographies and industries with sector experience in logistics, express delivery, retail, animal nutrition, automation, and TMT. Abris Capital is a regional, both Central and Eastern Europe and Southeast Europe champion of promoting sustainable and responsible investing. And Milorad is going to share with us examples of delivering visible and quantifiable KPIs in responsible investing, a strategy that is fully integrated in the Abris investment strategy. Abris has developed a proprietary methodology and tools to further strengthen their commitment in ESG objectives. And that's why I'm really, really happy to have Milorad with us, as well as all of the three distinguished speakers. So before we start in our discussion, very often we get very confused with interchangeably used acronyms ESG, which stands for environmental, social impact and corporate governance, then responsible investing, impact investing. And, you know, just before we start with our panel discussion, I want to give a chance to all of the panelists to make a very short definition and remark in 2 or 3 sentences from a practical standpoint of view, how do you actually use those terms and how do you implement them in your investment strategy? And I will start with Renata Burkic from Feels Good Capital.
Hello. Let me just tell briefly. For us, impact is the expression that encompasses everything. Environmental impact, social impact, and good governance. We, in Feels Good, as a social impact investment fund, social is our must. Environmental is in addition, and governance, of course. But touching people is the must when we determine the impact criteria and when we do the measurement. So this would be like, in short, the definition of how we see it and how we operate.
Okay. Milorad?
Right. So when we look at ESG, we typically think about measuring the sustainability and societal impact of an investment in a company. I think, these are all, I would say, pretty similar concepts, but sustainability, and when we talk about environmental sustainability, we are typically thinking about the quality of not being harmful to the environment. And then with impact investing, I guess we see it as a strategy not only meant to generate a financial return, but also a kind of social and environmental impact.
Okay, and Maya, maybe you can provide a really broad overview. You know so much about it. I don't know, how can you actually put everything in like 2 or 3 short sentences?
I'll try my best. So I would say we need to work on the definition of those terms because the market needs to have a bit more clarity. But I think for us, it's definitely a two-sided approach. On the one hand, there's the impact approach. So we need to make conscious decisions where we want to channel our funding to. In EBRD's case, we have decided just recently to put 50% of all our financing into green projects by 2025. So that's a decision of resource allocation. And then on the other side, it's also about mitigating negative impacts by having a full ESG risk management integration. So positive targets, but also full risk mitigation on the ESG side.
Okay, thank you. And I want to just now maybe touch upon our main theme of this panel. And this is the ESG and sustainability considerations and responsible investing, regardless of the definition you want to use, have become a mega trend that has really become a mainstream already prior to COVID-19 crisis. In fact, I remember it so vividly when we started live conferences at the beginning of the year. ESG was there as a mainstream topic on everybody's lips on both M&A and private equity conferences. And so I would like to ask a question, how is this year different, 2020? What should we expect next? Has the COVID-19 reinforced the mega trend of sustainability and ESG considerations, or not? So what do you see from your perspective? And maybe I would like to give the floor first to Maya, because she has a very broad overview on the entire Central and Eastern European NSE region. She sees many clients. Can you provide us perhaps an overview?
Sure, gladly. So I think in the short term, we see a few clients that are a bit concerned. They say, look, right now we're in survival mode. We can't take care of ENS or ESG. However, I think that's obviously a very short-term perspective. And while we understand the market pressures of this crisis, we also see that actually those clients that have done ESG integration well, they are weathering the storm better, and they're better placed now. They have better labor policies. They're better equipped to accommodate those changes that we see in the workforce right now, from switching to remote working. They have better health and safety systems. They have better concerns or better handling of crisis in general. So I think it shows the importance of ESG and doing this properly. And I think it will, in this sense that we're hearing a lot right now of building back better, I think it will be the guiding star, so to speak, for the next years, because we see now that there's no other way now.
Okay, and maybe I will ask Milorad You know, he's seeing quite a bit of activity here on the ground in SC region.
Right. So I have to say that we are seeing a lot of activity definitely in terms of deal flow. In terms of the ESG this year versus in the past, I would say our approach hasn't changed. I mean, when looking at new investments, 2020 is no different from the perspective of looking at deals and kind of the key ESG considerations. So the only thing that's really changed is how we kind of conduct meetings. Obviously, everything is online now, but we are learning to deal with it and adapting. In terms of our portfolio, so we are obviously very focused on ESG, but we also have to be mindful of any issues that the companies may be facing in terms of liquidity in this kind of environment. And luckily we are a growth capital fund, so we're not seeing much in terms of liquidity issues, which is great. But there are those assets that are more cyclical in nature, and we are indeed focused on basically cash on liquidity, always keeping in mind ESG goals, but kind of being selective in terms of what kind of ESG elements of the value creation plan we are focusing on at this very moment. So I think we are looking at the moment at more low-cost initiatives in ESG terms in those portfolio companies which are more cyclical in nature and more affected by the crisis. But in general, we are very, very focused on ESG because we see it as a huge kind of value driver for our investments.
Yeah, I think these things would be very important for our audience to understand, that ESG considerations in fact are wonderful as a risk management tool and the value creation mechanism which can deliver a superior financial returns. So let me now turn to Renata, whose main mandate and a mission of Feels Good Capital is indeed impact investing. Maybe she can just touch upon on their mission. They have just fundraised the fund, so they're just at the beginning of investment cycle. How difficult, and they've been planning this exercise for now 3 or 4 years, as this long took the fundraising process. So how do you feel like starting with impact investing now in this year 2020?
Well, thank you. Yes, it took us 3 years to raise the fund.
Renata, do you hear Renata?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I don't hear her. I have to.
Okay, shall I continue? I will continue speaking so we don't lose time. So it took us 3 years to put together the fund, not because we were raising the fund, but because we were raising the awareness and we were educating the traditional investors, the pension funds and the institutional investors on what is an impact fund and what is it all about the impact investing. So what I can tell you, some 4 years ago, people would be scared about the word impact, because they would understand at first glance that impact means no profit. So that's either profit or impact. So the awareness raising and the education was very important, and we spent a lot of time on that to make people understand that in order that you can do impact, you have first to be profitable, and very profitable. Only then you can do impact in addition. So now we have made our investors and the countries here, the 2 countries that we are operating in, we are the first impact fund in the whole region. And we have made the region understand that impact investing is that we actually ask for more, that we are worth, not only for profit, but for impact in addition. During the process, while we were raising the fund and raising awareness, we were also discussing the deal flow. So we have screened more than 200 companies that have opened their books for us just like this, because they were happy that somebody is taking into consideration the impact they are doing. And today we have a nice deal flow. We are not starting, so we already know who are our best targets. And the great thing was that there are two companies in our deal flow who were waiting for us and who said we want that. We don't want to go to the classical venture fund. For us, for our image, is important that an impact fund invests in us. So this shows that the people who do impact, who understand impact, they choose. And I think this is. I'm not afraid for the future or for the deal flow. Mm-hmm. Even the traditional companies, we are working with them. They are now embedding impact in their businesses.
Okay, thank you so very much, Renata. You touched upon, both you and Milorad touched upon a very important issue, and often we see this frontier market of or emerging markets of Southeast Europe slightly more different to perhaps more developed markets of the rest of Europe. So I wanted to just ask a question about the regional differences. And by that, not solely on the regional differences between our regions, SEC or the rest of Europe, but also between the EU and the non-EU member countries, due to some forthcoming and very demanding sustainability and ESG legislation that is going to impact the way we do business in private equity and M&A transactions as well. So maybe I can ask a question to Maya on how does she see, as she's overlooking at the entire region, the regional differences, what are changes are expected in the future, and also what are the forthcoming legislative changes that will be further reinforcing these trends and drive towards sustainability. Maya?
Yeah, I think you've already highlighted it completely correctly. I think the biggest driver and the mega trend right now is certainly the legislation that's coming from the European Union under the EU Sustainable Finance Framework, including the EU taxonomy, which is, of course, the first big attempt to really define what is green in the first place. Something like that existed before. It's also underlying directives that are related to non-financial reporting, to green bond standards, and so on. So I think the EU is really much ahead. We get a lot of inquiries from our clients in EU countries that are now seeing that they will have to implement that in the very short term. So they're trying to get ready. We're also seeing, however, that the impact is very large beyond the EU countries, especially, of course, countries around the EU, but even beyond. Also, our clients on the African continent and elsewhere, they're really observing what's going on in the European Union and what's coming out of these sustainable finance framework and action plan, because they see that this will highly likely become industry shaping in a way, even beyond the EU. Also for lack of alternative, right? Because there is no other taxonomy right there out there. So we believe it will be adopted more broadly than just for EU countries. So I think it behooves everyone to take a close look and be in touch with those developments and what's coming. And I think it will help us all. It's, of course, a big regulatory push. As usual, there's those leaders in the industry that are already pretty much there. There's others that are a bit more hesitant and observant and seeing what's coming. But we need to all get on there. I think it will be the greatest shaper for the ENS sphere in the next few years, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And just, given that not just voluntary, but also mandatory push towards sustainability, I want to now maybe turn to a very important point, and what would be some practical implications on incorporating ESG considerations on the way we do business and throughout the investment process? So from the due diligence to an action plan, monitoring, and reporting on the ESG and sustainability KPIs. And here I would like Milorad to perhaps describe in detail how do you do that at Abris, because Abris Capital is one of the champions and promoters of responsible investing amongst the CE private equity funds. And they have developed their proprietary tools and methodology, which are really impressive. Milorad, can you please comment on that?
I don't hear him.
We have to...
Sorry, I unmuted my mics. So yeah, so there is a deep, I would say there's a deep internal conviction about the value of ESG that is driving this, I would say, this strategy. What's changed, what is practically is that 10 years ago you were not really considering ESG when you were doing the due diligence. So ESG due diligence is now another item that you basically have to add to your topics for diligencing, along with the other kind of more standard areas. Apart from that, obviously, if we do invest, then the whole ESG value creation plan is added to the kind of the master value creation plan. So that's it, I think, in terms of the due diligence part. The way we do due diligence is basically via a combination of internal, in-house specialists. So we have an ESG director, and then external ESG due diligence providers. And then when it comes to best practices after the investment, what we do is we will incorporate the ESG value creation plan timeline into our master value creation plan. And then we have monthly kind of extensive supervisory board meetings where this is followed on a monthly basis. So basically whatever was agreed in the timeline is then checked with the management team every month. In addition to obviously all the other topics, including commercial, financial, and strategic.
We don't hear you.
No, we don't hear you, Vidna.
Sorry, I have muted my mic because of the technical issues. So, Renata, may impact, sustainability, ESG considerations, this is all at the heart of your investment process. Can you maybe now go more in detail and explain how do you do in practice? You have a very distinguished expert advisor team. You have a very distinguished methodology. So how you actually approach the impact investment in practice?
Yeah, we have the impact investment. We have the impact panel that consists of the academics who were actually the pioneers and who are the stars of impact since the early 2000. They are the professors of business, economics, sociology, and also of marketing. And they are the ones that are helping us. So we don't have a director of impact, but we use them. And every deal, every company in parallel goes first to them, and they sit together and they discover together what impact the company is going to do, what impact the company is already doing, just to because entrepreneurs, they just they solve problems per se, and they run after their business, not being even aware of the impact they're doing or of the damage they are doing while making profit. So our panel, they sit with them, they help them determine the impact criteria and the impact measurement, how they will measure it, and we do it on a quarterly basis. So every deal is required to report on a quarterly basis on the impact results. In terms of social impact, you said it's very distinguished. It's very simple. It's counting people. The more people you touch for good, the better you are in achieving impact, whatever this good is out of the 17 SDGs.
Yeah, excellent, good. And then maybe I want to turn to Maya. I mean, Maya is overseeing an impressive portfolio of 3.3 billion euros approvals per year. So she sees various ESG considerations in all this deal flow, and maybe she can provide us with a big picture.
Yeah, of course. I always jokingly say I see the good, the bad, and the ugly, but it's actually not that true. We don't see too much ugly because I think people that come to EBRD, they're already quite tuned into to what it means having to comply with our environmental social standards, which is not easy. So now I think Milorad actually highlighted very well the process of environmental social due diligence and what it means in practice. And so I'm going to step a level back and just say, because we've been doing this for 30 years. Yeah. So I think we have a lot of lessons learned on what works and what doesn't. And I believe what we saw in Milorad, he said it as if it was very natural, but to be honest, I see among our clients it not always is. I think the key thing is to really integrate it in everything else that you do, to really integrate it in your financial considerations, your risk management, legal compliance, or everything else. Environmental social is not a sideshow. It needs to be completely part of everything else that we do when we consider a potential investment. So this is the first thing. It certainly needs to come out of the little PR kind of exercise box. And I think to a great extent, it already has over the past years. The second thing we see is, and I think that the private equity industry is really a little bit on the forefront of that, because of the type of engagement with the investee companies is to really have a proper engagement with the companies you invest in. And that's obviously in private equity, that's easier because you're already on the board, you're engaging anyway with management. So you can really influence things beyond just the list of negative covenants of what not to do, right? So I think we can actually learn a lot from the private equity industry on that front, how to really positively and proactively engage with a client on E&S. Another thing I want to say as a lesson learned, I think, is to look at it a bit broadly. I think Renata has highlighted that very well. It is social, it is environmental, it's not only climate change. Of course, climate change is the biggest topic of our time, no doubt about it, but environmental concerns go also beyond that. And social concerns, I slightly disagree with Renata that the measuring is so easy. I think it's actually quite complex to measure the social side. But I think she's fully right. The social side is absolutely important. And I think also now through the COVID pandemic, the social impact side will become even more highlighted. So we need to have a good grasp on that as well. So yeah, I think that these are maybe the main lessons learned I want to point out. I'm sure I have like 100 more and 10,000 of anecdotal evidence examples, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, maybe you can think about the anecdotal example while I'll turn to I turn to another sort of also an overview topic. But before I do that, I would like to say that this is a live session, an interactive session, and I see absolutely no question from the audience, and so I want to use this opportunity to encourage everybody from the audience. It's a little bit different that when we are present physically. Please use the stage function to put your question. We'll see your question here and we can selectively answer it. So if you would like to participate, please feel free to answer the question. So I want to now ask, so there was, thank you very much. So I have a question here from Gavin Ryan. Thank you, Gavin, for participating. And, he is asking a question, is there such a thing as an ESG professional? And he is a mid-cap private equity GP, and he often comes across sustainability and ESG experts. So he says that if you are an ESG expert, you need to be really a truly interdisciplinary person covering, being at the same time a geologist, a biologist, meteorologist for climate change, or similar, sociologist, anthropologist, behavioral expert, historian. Okay, maybe he's exaggerating a little bit, but what are the qualifications of the ESG experts? Now, I don't really agree with you, Gavin, because I took the past year to educate myself in sustainability arena, taking the ESG, climate change sustainability strategy, corporate responsibility, green bonds and climate bonds trainings. and I can assure you that it's not as complex as it seems. You can actually receive this interdisciplinary training. But maybe I will ask the fellow panelists to comment on that. Maya?
It's a great question. I think, as with a lot of things, there's a very broad field. Now, if you want to go out and do an environmental social due diligence on a category A high-risk project being built in pristine nature, then yes, you have the very worst technical, and there's no way you can train yourself to be that in a year or in 2, or probably not in 3. So I think that there's very different things. However, to learn about sustainable finance, I think every finance professional can certainly do that and become that. There is a lot of information out there. It's also a field that's in the making. So a lot of things are not quite clear defined yet. So I think just having this diversity of thinking and having the diversity of this list that you're providing, sociologists, anthropologists, psychologists, historians, that's exactly what we need, right? Because sustainability is a very broad field. It is transcendental. It goes through everything. And we will need all hands on deck, clearly. So I think, in our team, we have a 40-person, approximately 40 staff ESG team at EBRD. We have a lot of engineers, we have anthropologists, I'm an economist by trade. So there's all sorts of different fields, but we've all, you know, when you really learn ESG is when you put on your rain boots and you actually go out on a site visit and then you start talking to people. I think that's when you can really learn what the difference is between a investment and a sustainable investment, because there you see the issues, the potential risk, the environmental risk, the social risk, but you also see the impact and the potential impact, and I think that can teach a lot.
And maybe can I turn now to Milorad to talk about the ESG experts, because you already mentioned that you have both the internal and external advisors that you've been relying on to in various jurisdictions. Can you just very briefly comment on that, and then I think we will move on.
Sure. Well, just let me comment. I mean, I can't claim to be an ESG expert, okay? I'm actually on the investment side of the private equity business. So, you know, my experience is ESG is, I think, quite limited compared to Maya and EBRD. And obviously the staffing they have sounds very, very impressive. And our ESG director is PhD in business ethics and human rights. That's his academic background. He worked in one of the big 4 before that. What I like about him, because this is the extent of my experience with ESG, is him and basically our external providers. What I like about him is that he's able to balance quite well, insisting on the highest ESG standards, while at the same time not negatively impacting the commercial side of the business. So I think, you know, my experience with these profiles is that you want a person that is well balanced between, you know, commercial aspects and strategy, and insisting on, you know, the highest standards in terms of implementing environmental, social, and governance issues. You know, in terms of the external providers of services, I mean, I cannot obviously advertise them, but they're out there in the market, and you know, the service providers that we use, I found quite professional and very, very knowledgeable.
Yeah, and maybe I give you just a brief chance to Renata. I mean, she has an impressive advisory board that is part of the Feels Good capital investment strategy. She has already discussed that in a bit, but if she can just summarize that in 1 or 2 sentences.
Yes, I just wanted to say that EIF is our biggest investor, and the instrument was from SIA, Social Impact Accelerator. And it was imposed by them in the due diligence process where we were putting Feels Good together, that in the mix of the team, there are not only finance professionals and people with venture track records, but they insisted on entrepreneurial and impact in entrepreneurial track records. So my role in the team was on that one. I'm filling up the part of from my experience of entrepreneurial impact projects and of business angels impact investing. So this was, but then this was not in first. They wanted the balance of a team, and after that, in addition, the experts with the academic backgrounds from, as Milorad says, said, the human rights, sociology, economics, but the people who were really hands on the topic for the past 20 years.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think that, we will slowly be moving to another theme, which is, just sort of, I would like to have an outlook and maybe tips and tricks that you would like to share with the audience on how, and for private equity and M&A professionals, what would be your advice to market participants on the ESG considerations? Why are these ESG considerations, as well as climate change impact with the EU taxonomy, market changers, and why early adopters of the ESG considerations may benefit? Maybe I will turn first to Maya. She has a very broad overview on those issues.
Yeah, I think we've already alluded to many of those points. I think it is not an option anymore. We're all dealing with environmental and social impacts, and we will be asked to do much more so from regulators, from clients, from the investor industry or universe. So it's not optional anymore. I think every rounded professional that in the finance industry that has an understanding, a basic understanding at least of risk issues and financial issues and legal issues in the same way will be required to have basic understanding of sustainability issues. And I think it is a market opportunity. It is not only risk management, although it makes a lot of sense on both sides. And yeah, I think it's not going to go away. So we better get on this train very fast. And I think, again, the private equity industry is very uniquely placed because private equity has a lot of impact. There's no doubt about that. So if you're a private equity professional or a fund, you can have even much more impact if you spend a little bit of time on integrating environmental and social considerations. And I think it's great for you. You will sleep better. It's good for business. It's great for your clients. And it's absolutely great for society at large. So I can only encourage everybody to spend some time on it. It's not open heart surgery. It's not rocket science. For the trickier issues, if you're financing a wind farm and you suddenly need to define risks to bird and bat species, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that myself. There's excellent experts out there that you can hire, and you can get that advice. So don't be shy. Just start somewhere and set up a robust system. Make it count. Make it valuable, and integrate it fully in your core business, not just as a marketing gig.
Yeah, I think that in the sustainability and ESG space, we are sort of all vaguely aware that this is something that is a strategy that is extremely important, and it is there to stay. It's a mega trend, but still we see sort of leaders and the laggards in implementing in practice this strategy. So while some investors have been a little bit ignorant or just passively complying with whatever is currently needed by the regulation, which is extremely modest compared to whatever is coming up in terms of the EU legislation. And then we have champions and promoters of the ESG and sustainability investment strategy who have managed to use that type of strategy in a fully integrated investment approach to create and deliver superior value for their investors. And so I'm very happy to have two examples. Both Milorad and Renata have devised that type of strategy, and maybe they can elaborate a little bit more. Why have you been, Milorad, especially because you have started, I don't know, perhaps 20 years ago. Why are you the early adopters of sustainability strategy? Why are you championing the sustainability and responsibility in this region? And have you seen already the payoffs of that strategy?
Yeah, so well, there are multiple motives why you want to have ESG. I think the first one all of us, as individuals, and focusing on ethics and considering basically our children and what kind of world they're going to live in. I think it's our duty to at least try collectively to leave them a sustainable planet. So there's a bit of a personal, I would say, reason there. But the business models would be, you suggested one, risk. Yes, definitely. If you're able to reduce the risk side by applying good ESG standards, then you're looking at a better risk-return profile for the investment. And then, our experience also, especially lately, is that buyers, so both strategic and financial sponsors, and even actually public markets, if you're exiting through an IPO, they will all look at ESG as an important area of DD. So this wave has already started, and you're actually risking being penalized in your valuation if if your portfolio companies don't actually have good ESG standards. So there's a very real financial, I would say, impact there at exit as well. So I would actually say that it's not ESG is not sacrificing our ROI. It's quite the contrary. It actually is likely to enhance it. In terms of my advice when looking at businesses, I would say put ESG as one of the priorities along with all the other areas you're diligencing at the very start. Because if there are deal breakers out there, the worst thing that can happen is that you're diligencing other areas, and it basically ends up wasting your time, because you will at a later stage run into a major ESG issue that is kind of a non-starter for the investment. That's my advice in terms of looking at ESG very early on. And I think early adopters will benefit because of the kind of the rapid and continuous rise in awareness about the importance of ESG. Especially people that are aware that they're affecting all stakeholders with ESG, whether it's individuals, companies, or governments. So I think a lot of funds will be chasing solid businesses with strong ESG policies implemented. And I think, yes, definitely in that sense, early adopters will be benefited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also I want to now just give a floor to Renata. She is indeed an early adopter as well, as a first impact fund in our region. And she thanks to the strategy, they've already benefited from attracting the cornerstone investors, the EIF, for example, and other institutional quality investors, because they obviously see a superior investment strategy as well as the one that you can feel good about. So maybe Renata, can you comment a little bit on how actually, what would be your advice for anybody who wants to consider starting to implement the impact and sustainability strategy?
Yes, as Maya said at the beginning, I really believe it's not anymore an option. I mean, they would like to consider, everybody would have to consider it. I will just wrap up what the colleagues said. The first motivation, the intrinsic motivation, comes from you, from your home, from the books you read, from the way you are raised. Then the second one comes from that when you observe the planet now, and maybe if we haven't touched the COVID, which I'm happy so far, but the COVID has shown that the borders and the money and the BMWs and that some values will not last in the coming 50 years if we don't take care of our people and of our planet. So this is, and it has become a must. And there are new generations coming, there are millennials coming who are very aware of it, who choose very much, who choose where they will work, who choose what they will buy, and they are actually also inheriting the money because they are the children from the baby boomers. So and they are like investors again. So I think these are all the little pictures of the trend that is coming. The gap between rich and poor is widening, and this is a shame on our civilization. And there is space for the companies to stretch and to think of innovative models and make profit and impact in addition. And there is a huge space. Not only the NGOs or the governments alone would be able to solve these issues. It should be a joint effort, and this should be a motivation, and also it's a question of image. So maybe in short.
Thank you very much. And now already we have kind of sort of wrapped up with our concluding remarks and the outlook and the advice. There is a question from the audience, which I think would be very valuable to actually share with everybody, because although we talked about in general on the process, it seems that there are still some key missing links. So perhaps we can just provide a value added to enlighten our audience. So I have here a question from Adrian Dabula, who is from Tirana, Albania, AC Advisors, and he is trying to ask us, can we perhaps elaborate a little bit more on the actual measurement process, whether you implement the proprietary measurement systems or we refer to the international standards? That is a very valuable question. First of all, in terms of the sustainability, we have so many metrics and so many measurement standards. You can measure the KPIs in the Global Reporting Initiative, GRI standards, or you can measure it using the SASB metrics of materiality. You can measure it measuring the impact per sustainability development goals, or SDGs as they are known. But unlike, these are private companies that private equity and M&A investors usually deal with. And unlike the public companies, which have already for years been publishing the corporate sustainability report and who have received ESG ratings from the mainstream ESG rating investors such as Sustainalytics or MSCI or any other rating agencies. You come to the company, there isn't necessarily a metric or a KPI that the company has seen before. You have to start from zero. You have to start from scratch. So maybe if you can summarize it in a very 2 or 3 sentences, because we are running out of time. I'll first ask Milorad and then Renata and then Maya, but just 2 or 3 sentences, and this is going to be the very last question.
Mirna, I almost wish you asked Maya first, but I will give my best. Again, I'm on the investment side of the business, and I have a colleague who is the ESG director, who is obviously adding the most value on ESG. But my answer to that is, yes, we do obviously have measurement tools in there, because KPIs only, in my opinion, can only be good if they are measured. And so we have tools that are measuring the effectiveness of our value creation plan in all of these segments, so environmental, social, and governance. Of course, the degree to which you are measuring each of those will depend on the type of company that you are investing in, right? So there's not a kind of one-size-fits-all that I've seen used in the multiple investments that I've been involved in. And that's really as much detail as I can provide. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a little bit, what do you choose? What type of standard? Materiality matrix is extremely important, as well as, you come to the company, you ask, for example, so how much electricity do you generate from the renewable sources? And is that a question that the company can provide? Is in the jurisdiction where the company is operating, is the electricity operator providing that type of data? So you come to sort of things that you cannot necessarily answer. So it is a process that is not straightforward. Maybe I'll ask a question now to Renata.
Yes, we use impact-weighted accounts methodology developed, and actually it's still in the process of developing by the Harvard Business School, but it was launched last year. What does it mean? It means trying to give the monetary value to the good and to the bad you produce as a side effect of your business. Which means the easiest to understand is if there is a standard commonly agreed that 1 ton of the CO emission is valued at $300. So the more you have, this is actually we applied to the profits you have made. It is decreasing your result. And but it is very individual. We do it company by company, and once we determine the impact criteria and how we will measure, we also decide on the coefficient that will be applied and the monetary value of the metrics, whatever it is, whether it's a person or a kg or a kilowatt of electricity, and then we try to build it into the standard accounting practices in order, and then you can improve your result or decrease the result when you implement it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And now I want to turn the question to Maya. She has an amazing overview of various practices, of various standards that are hopefully, with some initiatives, moving to the same standard, and there are initiatives to actually unify those standards of reporting and the metric practices. So maybe Maya, you can comment on that and provide your view.
I'll do that. So for ourselves, I think there's some
Renata, can you please mute yourself? Thank you.
So for ourselves, as EBRD, we have a very extensive system of measuring. On the impact side, we have our impact matrix, where we look at a large number of economic, social, environmental impact KPIs, GHG reductions, jobs created, GDP impact, and so on and so forth. And then on the ENS risk management side, we go along our own environmental social performance requirements, and we have like an annual reporting loop where we measure our clients annually on a large set of data. It's maybe a little bit extensive for some of our clients, but we're a public institution, we're a development bank, so we have to be accountable to this mandate, of course. And then I think I hear a lot from our clients that they're a little bit confused and also a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of different measuring systems, methodologies, reporting standards that there are. There's certainly a bit of a reporting fatigue sometimes when they're, for example, subscribing to different initiatives, whether it's GRI or the UN PRI or the UNEP FI's responsible banking principles. So there's a lot of things out there, and we do promote a harmonization of those. So whenever we participate in consultations on their standards, we always say that we should come up with some sort of joint understanding for measuring. It's just not quite there yet. But I think we also need to remember, financial reporting standards, they also weren't done in a day, and it takes a little bit of time, I think, to shape the system. And we're at the same stage right now for non-financial reporting data. Having said that, I always say there's no such thing as non-financial reporting data, because all our non-financial risks, they are also resulting in financial risks. So I think it's something in the making, and we all, as an industry, we need to really work on having a better harmonized standard for measuring and reporting. But it's not done yet. It's a work in progress.
Yes, I'm absolutely there with you. I agree that, for the financial reporting standards, we took almost 4 decades. But in fact, I'm thinking that for the non-financial or sustainability metrics that we are going to report, we will take much less, probably 5 years to a decade. And in a decade, it's going to be completely normal that every business has
Hopefully.
a very unified metrics, including the climate change issues. And if you believe that the COVID-19 exercise is terrifying, hold your breath, because climate change is something that we will have to live through if we want to see our children growing up and remain and staying in a sustainable world without, extreme weather events that are already threatening our planet. So with all of that, I would like to thank extremely all of our panelists. So Maya Hernkens, the senior lead for the ECG implementation at EBRD, Milorad Angelic, a partner, at Abris Capital Partners, and Renata Burkic, Feels Good Capital Partners. You know, please feel free to reach out to all of us during this event, as well as to connect with all of us on LinkedIn. We'll greatly appreciate. Thank you very much for being here, and maybe we can just applaud virtually to all of them. Thank you. You've been really brilliant. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Mirna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.